Karibuni, welcome tuelimishwe kwa masuala ya jamii, tutumbuizwe kwa sana mbalimbali, tujuzwe juu ya matukio ya kila pembe, twawapa burudani kwa familia nzima.
Good evening. Welcome to the show. My name is Likuyani Eli, and right in time for the family edition that comes to you every single Saturday right here on our YouTube channel, TheArtsinHeart on YouTube. So in case you haven't subscribed to the channel, you know what to do right now. Go to the channel, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell, because every time we go live, you want to be notified. Tonight, our topic is for better, for worse. You know, when reality checks comes in finally, and you notice you signed all those terms and conditions, and one of them included the worst part. What happens when the worst kicks in? Find out, because my coach and our coach, Coach Collins Bolo, is right here to start the stream with us. Good evening, Coach, and how are you doing tonight?
Good evening, Eli. I'm very much fine and well. Still busy working in Western Kenya and Nyanza. God willing, next week.
Yes, Coach. I can tell clearly you are not in Mombasa anymore.
In Mombasa.
I can tell you're not in Mombasa thanks to the connection.
Yeah, I know. Connection in Mombasa and Nairobi is the best. Actually, up and down. But still, tutapambana na hali yetu.
Exactly. Coach, when we started a couple of series behind, and that's the mini series, you know, before you say I do, one of the issues we were looking at is the fairy part of life and how things are gonna go. And we also looked at when marriages that don't work. And then last week we focused on an important topic called sickness in the family, and we looked at the child. And in this case, we are looking at the couple involved. I want to give you a story, Coach, and this is real life story in a village called Lirembe, back in the Ikolomani constituency, if I'm not wrong. There is a young man that was working in the mines, you know, gold and all that. That area is very rich with minerals, and among them is gold. So one of these fine days, he goes to work and the mines collapse on him. And when they collapsed, unfortunately, he was one of the victims. The only fortunate part is he survived. 9 hours later, he was able to be excavated out, and he was still alive. The only thing that happened is, unfortunately, his life never went to be the same. He became paralyzed because his back and the spine were quite injured. And then finally, just a week before that, they had a child with a wife. And the wife now has a young baby that they're nursing, and a husband that is supposed to be nursing. Call it fate, call it life. But that's the story of that young man. Long story short, the beautiful wife, at the age of 21, opted to go. The parents of this young man today still very, very angry and sad that their son lost a livelihood, lost a wife, but even worse, the wife left him at his point of need. Coach, what would you do?
Thank you, Likuyani. That's a case study of an episode which happened to this young man, which is under what we call grief and loss. And grief and loss is one of the emotion which most of the time people overlook. However, it plays a very key role in how we relate, how we live in a day-to-day life. Mm-hmm. Here, for the woman, she lost the good health of the husband. For the husband, he lost his personal health and also lost. Now, both of them are grieving because the young lady is 21 years old, married to a young man, who is energized. And not only that, it's in the industry whereby if he succeeds, there'll be great future because of harvesting or looking for gold.
Yeah.
But everything has been shut off. Now, such kind of case studies are key for us to check, because when people are intending to marry, the excitement is so high, and other aspect of risks which come due to life we are not so much concerned about.
Mm-hmm.
When grief and loss come on our way, either loss because of loss of our health, loss of our body part, sometimes can be loss of job and other kind of things. What is our role in such kind of circumstances so that marriage can continue existing among these two couples, even in the middle of such kind of cases? Now, one of the big challenges we have is the fact most of the young people, by the time they're getting married, they don't go through premarital counseling where they can be prepared for better or for worse. But most of the people make their vows not knowing the impact of for worse as far as the issues of health is concerned. Now, because of lack of knowledge about what worse is meant when the clergy tells you to make it as part of the vow, this is the time whereby something like what happened in Ikolomani happens, whereby the young lady will just give up and take off and run away from the husband, because from the way things are, it seems this
Coach, are you still with me?
man will never get back. And this is where, at this particular point in time, what kind of expectation do people have before they get into marriage?
Mm-hmm.
They are not clear for the good or for the worse. That's where now we get challenges coming on our way. It's a case of grief and loss for both parties. The man has lost the wife has lost the potential of the man, and both of them are in grief, and each person is making the best choice which will be best for him or for herself. For the woman, the best choice was take off. For the man, there's nothing much which he could do but to observe each and everything happening around him.
Wow. Coach, you'll call it grief. Other people will call it betrayal. Other people will call it leaving me at my point of need. But for now, let's welcome our online family. We have Just Carol who says, sorry, that is Kiproroda who says, tuned in, karibu sana the family edition. And Just Carol, Mko, yes, tupo, karibu sana. Good evening to you, Nancy Magen. Thank you so much for coming in tonight. Njikita says, tuned in at in heart. Family, karibu sana. Agnes, on the other hand, says tuned in. Okay, tuned in, karibu sana. Meanwhile, we have Boniface Witaba, who tells us, and good evening, sir. Maverick Aoko once said, poteza livelihood yako uone kama umeoa mwewe. Such a relevant statement in today's relationship. Okay. And finally, we have here Golda Lumala, who says, tuned in. Welcome to the conversation. We are talking about for better, for worse. Do you want us to actually use this example of reference that Boniface is mentioning? Is it about losing the livelihood, or is it about losing the superficial things we saw in one person when everything was neat and well, accomplished, Coach?
Now, unfortunately, time when people fall in love, what attracts them is what they see from the surface, but the beauty below the skin is not as part of the issues which are being considered. Mm-hmm. For example, a young lady will be told by her mom, don't get to me a man who is not having a good job, who is not making good money. And the lady will be, apart from that, he has to be a man who is handsome, not well able, and who sounds as if he has a great future. Yeah. The same thing also happens to men, towards women. A young lady who looks beautiful, and there's nothing wrong with it. Every man is moved by what he sees, which is still part of being manhood. Then you talk about probably also having a job nowadays, which is part of the requirement, which most of the men are looking for. Someone who can be very resourceful as life moves on. But the big question is, when some of these temporary issues, which are good for the temporary purpose, get cut off or interfered within the shortest time possible, will that marriage last? That's where now a big issue is. Now, because of those people, what makes people to fall in love are just these partial good things. When a case, that's why it says that if your livelihood disappears, that's the best time you're going to know if your wife will grow wings like mwewe, meaning that she'll fly off from your marriage. And actually, unfortunately,
I think coach is really having a struggle tonight where he is. I hope he can be able to sort that out. Meanwhile, we are discussing for better, for worse. And if you're joining us for the very, very first time, this is the family edition that comes to you every single Saturday right here on Art in Heart. From last week, we've been looking at sicknesses in family. And tonight is not any different. Now we are looking at it from the perspective of couple. You're married, you are in a partnership, and then this one that you said, yes, I do too, and subscribe to all the best part of life with them, finally fulfills that other part that none of you want to talk about, which is the worst. The guy or the lady falls sick, and then you have to choose between staying or leaving that relationship. Coach Collins Bolo, I hope you're back and we can continue the conversation, Coach, before we take questions and, of course, continue with the conversation after the half break. So, Coach. Okay, mimi nitatuma coach na technicians huko nyuma wafanye kitu, wafanye mambo, alafu tutamrudisha hapa tuone kama anaweza kuendelea kuongea na sisi kwa sababu the connection is not really working. There's a question here from Anjikita who asks us tonight, how can the couple find a balance as they have to live with this difficult situation? And I believe we will be addressing this in our third quarter of the show. So stay tuned until the end of this conversation. Meanwhile, we have Selsa who says, Ako, Nico Karibu, thank you so much for joining the conversation. And I know for those of you who have been with us yesterday, we equally focused on one of our very local content that is coming live this Saturday, rather this Sunday, at the Anga Cinema Plaza, rather Diamond Plaza in Nairobi, Kenya. And in case you haven't heard about it, take a look.
Duru za kuaminika za tuarifu kwamba The Kibiriti Gang wamejirudisha uwanjani.
Shukuru sa god wako sikupata, ni kuitana mgeitana.
Rule number 3. Tukipita na msee, tunamfinya kwanza, alafu tunawahi do. Finya do.
Saini kurab shoulders na magangsters mabazu, crime law, mafia, deep state mse.
Allah, yani ni kulala mnalala mkiwa duty.
With a different flow, ni ushuhuda wangu, hebu sikiza. Na siku za rudi, ni kukuruka kara.
I'm pissed off. Bloody gasket. Hiyo tumekataa.
And don't forget to subscribe.
You definitely want to catch that tomorrow at 5 p.m. East African time. And of course, at 7 p.m., it will be screening for the very first time at Anga Cinema Diamond Plaza in Nairobi. And you know what? The till number, if you want to get yourself a ticket, is, let me just get this straight from my other device. That is 510-73, if I'm not wrong, 53. Okay, get a ticket for yourself, 1,500, and of course, carry along a friend. And when we meet next week, let's know how it went. Meanwhile, I have Coach Collins Bolo. Let's address the matters that are at hand. Coach, if you can hear me, good evening once again. Karibu, I hope we are sorted now. Coach, if you can hear me.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yes. So, Coach.
Well, yes.
These individuals have signed up for a long-term relationship and partnership. And finally, we have sickness that comes in the family. What are these other burdens that come with sicknesses, because we have everything starting from the financial aspect to, the issue to feel like one feels like a 24-hour nurse in that house. How do you deal with such, and what are these things that we need to be aware of, Coach?
Okay, one of the big challenges which come most of the time on our way is unexpected sickness and condition within marriage. I'll give you a good example. I've known young people who have loved each other, got excited so much about getting into marriage. Then upon getting to marriage, then one party becomes mentally ill. For example, your wife becomes mentally ill, your husband becomes mentally ill. But none of you was trained as any training on how to handle such kind of a partner. Like I had a case of a friend of mine who came for therapy, and the wife became mentally ill. And because of that, she used to be very irritable. At this particular time, due to that mental illness, by the time we were talking, having men's talk and having therapy, said, by the way, apart from my wife being mentally ill, in her illness, she has denied me my sexual right for 2 years, 2 good years, while they're married. So the guy is really mad about it. But at the same time, it's due to the condition of the wife. At this particular point, young
Okay. My excuses there. I'm gonna try as much as possible to have Coach Collins Bolo coming through, but we are discussing at the event. One is unable to give this what we call conjugal rights. What happens as a person? What would you do? And you signed up for better, for worse. So join us in the conversation tonight as we discuss this with you. And our question, of course, to the audience that we are asking is, what would you do if your spouse no longer functions intimately? Question is, what would you do if your partner or spouse no longer functions intimately? For better, for worse is the topic of tonight. Coach Collins, wewe naona tukikurudisha Mombasa wewe.
Naona hii Kisumu ninaihepa, maanake inaniletea matatizo kweli.
Sawa.
Kitu naona hapa ya nguvu iko karibu na mimi ni manjugu kwa wingi, lakini internet balaa kabisa.
Huyu nani nakupea njugu na shughuli gani leo, Coach? But anyway, story for another time. Unable to function, Coach. You have your partner, you married, they become unwell, and they are not able to do their conjugal duties. What then?
Yeah, it's a challenge because when such kind of illnesses come to one of the partners, it's a condition which is not out of self-will. And that's the time whereby, as a man, if it happens that your wife is in this kind of a scenario, it becomes a good litmus paper. If you're going to stand by the values for your marriage while treatment is on, or if you're going to take other alternative short measures or so-called long measures, which upon the time when your spouse is going to become well, he or she will feel betrayed. And one of the key things which is very important is the fact that before people get into marriage, they need to understand once in a while or sometime predicaments might come between your marriage in form of sickness and disease. Some are conditions which are totally out of control. You cannot just manage by your own unless several coping skills actually are taught to you so that you can be able, like for example, a case of mental illness, whereby it can be so stressing, like the case of this friend of mine. Sometimes the wife could be very verbal abusive. Sometimes she becomes very paranoid. At the same time, she's screaming about, and she comes up with a lot of vulgar words coming out of her mouth in assumption that all the men in the neighborhood are in desire of her sexually. At the same time, there's denial on one side. Smart, intelligent, nice, but however, she's sick, and the condition of sickness is on the mental part of. So coping skill and understanding the nature of the condition becomes extremely paramount so that the man does not get into a state of stress and depression. Also, you have other cases which can happen, like the case of an accident of this young man you are talking about. Then the waist gets affected. Then in the process, the man can no longer walk. At this particular point, I have a client whom I'm attending to him. I'm doing actually regenerative medicine therapy with this particular client who was involved in a road accident. The head was somehow smashed. He lost his memory, his speech, and part of his bones were affected. Right now, the guy has started to recover. However, there's a big challenge. When exactly will this man be well? That's the big concern from the wife. For 2.5 years, she has been there standing with the husband, trying to give every support which the husband can get. But when the problem will be over, it's free. That's the time when the marriage gets in for a very big test. And this situation becomes...
Again, our apologies because we seem to really be having a struggle tonight with Coach Collins' site connection. However, Nico Harper, and definitely we are going to have this conversation with you and myself as we continue to have Coach Collins join in as much as possible. I asked you a question, which is, what would you do if your spouse, and in this case your partner, no longer functions intimately? We have some response coming here from Joy, who says, I will try each and every way to make it work. And the question is, which way is this? Kindly help us understand, what is this way? Because we're talking about a long-term illness that this person is unable to function completely. For better, for worse, we stick to our partners till death do us part. Wow, Kipro Roda, that is intense. That is intense, and I hope Coach can help us through. Again, we will come back to most of your comments and of course responses to the question, which is, what would you do if your spouse no longer functions intimately? Thank you so much, Coach Collins.
Yeah.
Tuendelee na hii kazi ama tuchukue off leo?
Tuendelee tupambana tuna hizi shida za Kisumu.
Okay, okay.
Another thing which can help us is to separate the person from the challenge. That's very key. This is your husband, this is your wife. Separate him or her from the challenge. The challenge is the health condition at that particular time. But the moment you separate the two, it will help you to know exactly what you are dissatisfied about. For example, by the way, I don't really like the way my wife is undergoing a lot of pain, but I love her. You have separated the two. I don't like the way is mourning in pain. It makes me not even to sleep. However, I love her. You are separating the two. This is a friend of yours who has become sick. And because of the sickness, what you're feeling dissatisfied about is the situation of the sickness. Now, two, you need to understand the pain threshold which your partner has. There's some men and women, the ability to withstand pain is much higher than others. Some ability to stand against pain is less. So your husband will start behaving like a baby, crying up and down and having a lot of gymnastics in the house. That's the time when the man needs a wife who is a friend and a mother to him, so that it can be managed. It happens sometimes. But there's some men that be in pain and they'll pretend as if nothing is happening. Those are the kind of men you hear the wife saying, he was very strong even yesterday. I wonder how he has just died today. But the reality is he was holding all the pain and behaving as if nothing is exactly happening.
Yep.
Now, understanding your husband or your wife on how they behave under situation of pain, it's extremely key at this particular point, so that you can give the right.
Okay, we were talking about understanding the kind of pain that your spouse, that is the husband or wife, is in, so that you can be able to give and process this the correct way. Boniface Witaba says, and this is in response to Rhoda's comment, which is, what would you do? Says, the current crop of couples have revised the vows. They now say for better, for better. For worse isn't in their vocabulary. For worse isn't in their vocabulary. And people might be wondering, what are we discussing tonight? We're discussing the topic for better, for worse, which is what we expect when we walk into a relationship. And those vows, for those of you who have said them, they are easily said, and big smiles, and everybody's taking photographs until worse actually arrives. Then tables change. Then people start behaving otherwise. The case study we're looking at, it's an individual who is unable to perform sexually in a relationship that is supposed to be founded on those bases. Like, there's relationship, yes, and then there's marriage, yes, and then finally in the marriage, one of the things that happen there is that intimate relationship between husband and wife, or man and woman. And finally, we are asking you, what would you do if your spouse can no longer function? What happens? Join us in the conversation in the comment section as we continue with this conversation tonight. Remember, this is the family edition that comes to you every single Saturday right here on TheArtsinHeart. Meanwhile, let's take a quick break, and when we are back, we continue with the financial implication of long-term illness in a family and what next. My name is Likuyani Eli, and you're watching the family edition.
Timing is most important. 1 minute is enough. Every other thing that you're demanding for, that is on you. Your expectations are yours. Number two, I have a very amazing and deep friend of mine. He's called Ed. He's also a friend on Facebook. You guys can check him out. And one post that he made, which I'm sure he wouldn't mind me sharing here, was, number one, you cannot, both as a man and a woman, you cannot go out there adultering and sleeping with everybody that you meet out there. Then you come with the experience of adultery and fornication and peg it on someone else to fulfill your libidos based on your fornication. You get it? So
brother, may you live to see the day.
You cannot have a man who has just been maybe with 2 women, and he's just getting on with it, and he's keen to keep 1 woman. Then you've slept with a multitude of men out there, and you're coming and you're demanding a whole night of marrying. I mean, that one is not owed to anybody.
Definitely, that's the mess, and that happens every single Tuesday right here on TheArtsinHeart. So welcome back to the family edition, and we are discussing for better, for worse. Coach Collins Bolo, I hope we can get to one another finally. And I want us to now look at it from the financial aspect. There is an individual that is very, very sick, unable now to function intimately, and they can no longer function financially. What comes with this kind of burden to the family, the family unit, Coach?
Loss of intimate relationship and loss of finances is much more damaging. Now, depending also on the gender at the same time. Now, women have more ability to stand sexual pressure and such a kind of situation in contrast to men. Mm-hmm. And when it comes to issues of finances, depending on what society you're coming from, the society whereby it's much easier for a woman to take off and disappear when the man has financially been crippled. But in some other societies, men disappear when they're crippled and they leave their wives in a big trouble. Because financial challenges are real in most of our families and in our marriages. Mm-hmm. And when one gets himself to such kind of crisis, and there are no alternative ideas on what can be done, it makes the situation even worse. Now, the worst thing, even in our society today, is the fact that most of the young ladies getting to marriage today, what attracts them more is how much actualized in that manner. Majority, as much as we have young men who prefer to target women who are financially stable for them to sustain themselves, which are new emerging problem in our society today. Now, when you talk about for better for worse, people need to understand, for better for worse, when these vows are mentioned, they also talk about in riches and in poverty, meaning that there are time in marriage you might be in abundance, and there's some time in marriage where you might be not in abundance, in lack, which are seasons in life. But the big question is, before the season of lack comes in, how prepared are you? And when the season of abundance comes in, how prepared are you? Because how we behave in abundance will determine how we behave in the time of season of lack of cash flow. Now, people who have gotten themselves in that scenario, but they have savings, it becomes buffer for them. Yes, we don't have much cash flow coming in, but our savings can sustain us before we peak in the next season. But if it happens that the season is low and you have no savings, that's the time whereby lectures on financial management will start coming from any of the party who never even went to school and did studies about finances. And the next action plan will be, stay for yourself until you are ready and call me back home. These are things happening because both of them are not prepared in case financial crisis will come and we get to the bottom. What next? Is marriage still marriage when there's no money? Today, we have most of the young people declaring and even making their statements, without marriage, without money, there is no love.
Without money, there's no love. And without internet, we cannot have a good, great conversation with Coach Collins. I hope, Coach, Leo, tutakutoa Kisumu next week. You will not stream from Kisumu. And if you do, we will make sure you are airlifted to Nairobi. We have Njekita who is saying here, there are some spouse who can't manage their pains, whether and blame the entire world, especially their partner, about their condition, and have tendency to throw their frustration to the other. We'll be talking more about that. I hope Coach is noting that down. And of course, we have stand by your man or woman, no matter what. Support each other in difficult times and seek help if necessary. I'm intrigued to know the kind of people that are conversing with us tonight, what age bracket you are in between. Don't tell me a figure, because the kind of young people we are dealing with today amazes me. And Coach Collins Bolo, of course. We have, who else is here? Yeah, I will leave it at that because there are some other contributions, Coach, that are coming through, but I want us to tackle them as we progress swiftly. So, Coach, the idea of blaming your partner for your situation when things are not working anymore, and we're talking about sickness and, of course, the financial aspect and everything, when sickness has visited home, how do you eliminate this possibility and work through these murky waters?
Yeah, blame is a common weakness, which we see it from the good book. It started in the Garden of Eden, whereby Adam throws the blame to the wife throws it to the snake, and the snake has to throw it for the same. Now, when people don't want to take responsibility and also agree that challenges do exist, that's when the blame game comes in, and it becomes more tricky. There are some conditions whereby blame is much minimal than others. However, conditions like, for example, the couples have just found themselves to be HIV positive, and within the home it is known it's the husband dogging out, and now the innocent religious woman at home, finally she is HIV positive because of the husband, or vice versa. Now, such kind of scenario, not only does the condition become a challenge, that's one aspect, but blame game becomes much easier under such situation and scenario than probably someone has been found to be having a condition based on heredity factor. Now, in case such kind of errors have happened, the best thing is, what can we do now that we found ourselves in this situation? An accident has taken place, one person has been crippled. Now, instead of blaming each other, I told you not to take that safari. Nilikuambia usiende au kusikia, your tough-headed attitude has now led you to this condition. Suffer by yourself, let me go back to my parents. Such kind of scenario also happen most of the time in your life, in one way or the other. Now, because health challenges are bound to come on our way, some can be self-inflicted, some can be accidental. It becomes extremely important that couples are such a good friends to the point whereby, in case any of it come on our way, we can be able as friends to see how we can tackle it so that it doesn't affect our relationship. Why? Because these are scenarios just come on our way in the process of us working together in a journey of life. And some cases, it becomes extremely paramount for people to have hard talk and discussion about the condition of health to future life. I'll give an example. When my wife got COVID while working as a health worker, a time came whereby we had to sit down and discuss about, in case the worst happens and you die, what next? Do we have any plan for our children? Do we have any plan for ourselves? And we started discussing about death. And it came to a point she started telling me, now, if I die, are you going to marry again? How soon are you going to marry? But then who is in your mind whom you're going to marry? Because by Kimomana. Now, these discussions become extremely important because...
But nobody wants to talk about them, Coach.
Yes, that's why post-plan, it's very important. We had a lengthy discussion about death in case it happens. What next? What measures should be done? What about the issue of the kids and schooling? We discussed about it. Why? Because we know that the number of people become sick and some die much earlier. Sometimes situations come, you get a condition, but you cannot reverse it. You have to cope with it. But you don't jeopardize your marriage because of an event like sickness and disease. That's why the wise made sure that when you want to get in this deliberate step to take a risk to live with a stranger with the hope of a better future, it becomes important to understand these vows need dialogue on how you have to live with this condition or how you have to live if the condition strikes and one of you dies. For couples to have insurance cover for health, so that in case an eventuality as this come on our way, it will buffer and help you from spending from your pocket and your savings because of the insurance cover which you have. And unfortunately today, there are some couples who are overlooking and they feel as if it is a loss to take cover for your health. We need to encourage couples during premarital counseling, postmarital counseling, that it's extremely important to have insurance cover for your health so that in case an eventuality will come in, it won't drain your savings, but the insurance will cover you at that particular point in time. Back to you, Eli.
Well, insurance covers and buffering can happen, but how will that buffer you from a spouse who has seen and decided you are too sick for me? This bed has become too small. I'm going to move out of the room. And we know, Coach, when illnesses progresses, a lot of couples choose now to separate rooms or separate beds. Do you think that's an ideal solution?
Yeah, it's true. When situations sound to be so tough and impossible, there are couples who pull out. But before one thinks about pulling out, do they have support system? Because sometimes some couples make their problem to be so private as if there are other people who don't experience the same kind of challenge and problem. This is where support groups become extremely important. For example, one partner has cancer. We have cancer support groups which are existing, whereby people meet together who are undergoing some kind of situation, and they discuss among themselves difficulties, the challenges, and how they've been tackling the situation. Through such kind of support groups, also, you will come to discover that we have people who can help you to develop learn skills and techniques and coping skills under such kind of scenario, so that you don't just give up by the end of the day. Very important. When men and women meet together who are in the same scenario, support and encouragement also becomes another key thing apart from the caregiver. Now, even the caregiver himself, sometimes it might be important to outsource third parties caregivers, while you can have some break so that it doesn't stress you. But when your condition becomes extremely private, that's the time when one party or both parties will become stressed and finally distressed because of the same. So no condition is private. All conditions are situations whereby many people are undergoing and some are coping at the same time and some are recovering out of them. So support groups play a very key role in such matters.
Yeah, but coach, just that I can get a bit extra confirmation that my question has well been answered is, you are married or you are in a partnership, your partner falls ill, very ill, to the extent that you decide you are going to separate the rooms or the bed so that one can sleep in room A and the other one sleeps in room B. Is this an ideal solution so that one partner that is not sick actually gets to take time off? Or should we stick together for better, for worse?
Now, separating bed, sometimes they're important, especially if the nature and the condition of the patient sleeping together can be infectious. There's some condition whereby the partner condition immunity level might be very low. Now, you staying together, it can be a cause of infection. For infection control, sometimes it's advisable for both of you to have separate bed. Now, you coming to that decision is an act of love. Why? Because you care for your partner. Just like in hospital, you cannot say, I love my wife, my husband too much until you have to sleep on the same bed. It depends on the condition. And also, apart from that, you need to agree together. Another example I can give. Now, apart from infection control being part of the purpose, probably the injuries which your partner has and your lack of being stable and sleeping on the same position might be danger to your partner. Your partner was involved in a road accident. Yes, you got some injuries. Then you're the kind of a person who sleep as if you're swimming, moving from one side of the bed to the other. That one becomes danger to your partner as far as health is concerned. There are some situations whereby people can agree not to sleep together on the same bed because of the care, the best care which can be given to your partner. It's not the bed which makes people to be in love. It is the atmosphere which we create before getting to the bed which matter. Now, this particular point, if your presence on the same bed is a risk to the health of your partner, get another bed for that particular point. If you being on the bed will show support, then be on the same bed together, because some might feel rejected and lonely and alone. So the nature of the emotion matters. A good example, maybe your wife has fistula. Then you separate. She might think you are running away from me because of the smell.
Yeah.
Or a condition like cervical cancer. Yet probably what she needs from you is someone to hold her and someone to get close to her. Now, either staying together on the same bed or in different beds and different rooms should be something which both of you have agreed for the good of both of you and for the good of your relationship.
We're going to tackle much more in a few, but for now, let's just remind ourselves what Rises is all about. We'll be back in a moment.
Becoming compatible has to be very intentional, and you have to know areas which, as couples, you have to work on so that you can build your intimacy. No, you can build your compatibility. Those areas are very area: recreational intimacy, intellectual intimacy, spiritual intimacy, emotional intimacy, and also sexual intimacy. Very key and very important.
And welcome back to the Family Edition. We are hanging out with Coach Collins Bolo. For now, we want to take in your feedback, and then we proceed to the very, very final, pick of this conversation. Let's start here from Nyanuko says, tuned in, and she goes ahead and says, and this is one of the favorite quotes by Coach Collins, who says, marriage is a deliberate step to take risk to live with a stranger for hope of a better future together. Take insurance cover, remember that. And we have RL who says, good evening, Coach. Good evening to you, RL. We have, of course, Rhoda Kipro, who tells us, when I get married, we say for better, for worse. So if I get sick, I should get insurance. When I had not planned for the sickness, that came along, right? Okay, so we have Just Carol says, good conversation. Thank you so much for joining the conversation. We equally have, Leo Rhoda ameamua hii group ni yake, so we will read her comments. Only a great partner will give, only a greedy partner will give up on their partner if they get unwell or sick, for that case. And finally, she equally says, with or without separate rooms, I will stay and support my partner. They never chose to be sick. Okay, fair enough. Those are your comments, and we accept them. Let's, Coach, I want us to, conclude some of this conversation that we're having tonight. There is a statement that came in earlier from Jakita, who was asking then, Coach, in the event that you are unwell and there is sickness in the home, how do you create balance, so that how can the couple work and create balance through this grief period?
One of the things is to acknowledge and accept the challenge of sickness and disease which you have. 2, you need to understand the nature of the condition. If it's a condition which can be reversed through the medical intervention we have now, or a condition which probably reversing might not be easy. 3, whether reversing can be easy, possible or not possible, how can we develop coping skills under this situation? Now, apart from developing coping skills, can it be possible we get a support team so that we can help, so that it can help us to diffuse the kind of pressure we have at this particular point in time? Apart from support group, which can be people who are undergoing the same kind of situation, it can be people who are coming from religious organization, like it can be people from the community who probably are friends to the wife, friend to the husband. Support groups are very, very, very key at that particular point. Then, what are other medical care tasks which I need to know to safeguard and to make sure that my partner is safe and he won't get other kind of infections during this period when he or she is not feeling well? Now, as far as your marriage and relationship is concerned, now that this condition is on, how is the society's view to this condition? Very key, because that one will determine whether you are going to get a lot of pressure from other third parties. For example, a man is having erectile dysfunction because of the accident which he got. When our relatives will know about it, will they push me to go and get another man because our marriage is too early? Or probably a condition happened, the wife was delivering, then a complication came up, then through the intervention of the doctor, her system was interfered, now she cannot conceive. When our relatives will know this challenge which took place after the last delivery, will there be negative pressure on us about when is our next child coming? Or is it a condition whereby, because we can
My apologies
not
again,
describe
ladies
much
and
to our
gentlemen.
people, and they're ready to lead to a lot of. Okay, I'm back.
Well, we really apologize for that. Tonight we are trying as much as possible to stay in contact with Coach Collins, but the airwaves have tried and said leo hatutakuwa nayo discussion. But you know what? Regardless of everything, we survive and we continue with this conversation. We have Boniface who says, mapenzi, pesa, dunia na karne ya sasa, mapenzi yaendeshwa na pesa. Hamna tena cha penzi la rohoni, bali ni la pesa mkononi, mchombezapo mwari. My recent shahiri. That's awesome. 6 more stanzas to come later on. And if you want to follow on this, actually, Boniface is a great Swahili poet, and he writes on Boniface Witaba WordPress.com. Go there and read one of his amazing tells when it comes to matters love, mental health, among other stories. So I want us to conclude this conversation tonight. But before we do that, you all know when we started Against All Odds, or maybe you have an idea. And for those who have no idea what is Against All Odds and where it all stemmed from, it actually started out as Eli's Hangout. And tomorrow we will be bringing it and closing the curtains on it. But just in case you never did that, take a look.
Am I the person supposed to be looking for you?
Mm-hmm.
You need to talk, you know.
Unampigia simu leo, hashiki simu, kesho hashiki simu, ama labda akishika mnaongea kidogo anakuambia ngoja nifanye nini? Ni receive simu ya mtu mwingine, unaona?
Kama we've agreed on the projects I have, and I have my own money. I have no problem yeye kuchip in whatever he has. Kama anataka, si ati I'm forcing him to do that.
Coming from Africa into Europe, people look at you as a not well formed. For example, taking dessert, taking appetizers, and then taking the main course.
But watu wengi sana ni hiyo nakwambia, they really fake. Like, okay, si ati fake. Picha wana update, mapicha wanaonekana wako poa, so demand home itakuwa too high.
Life beyond borders, against the odds. And yes, that is the journey that Against All Odds started from. And tomorrow we will be closing the curtains on these live shows that comes to you every single Sunday. And guess who will be the one telling the story? Your guess is as right as mine. His name is Likuyani Eli, and he'll be telling his story on Against All Odds. So catch him tomorrow night as you catch the very last episode and the season finale of Against All Odds. Back to you, Coach Collins, and let's finish this conversation tonight. Coach Collins, we have earlier discussed about death very fast, but I want us now to really accept that all said and done, it is part and parcel of human life that death will come. What do you do if there is no probability of your partner surviving this illness and the definite way out is death? There's some people that request you to give them, there's a medical term that I've forgotten, and they request that to be procured so that they can die in peace. They cannot hold the pain anymore. Would you advocate that spouses will actually follow through if the legislation is passed and adhered to? Or number two, would you then bring the topic of you are dying? What should I do when you're gone? Should you marry or stay single, Coach?
Death is inevitable. And when it happens that your condition might never be reversed and death will come, it becomes extremely important for you to sit down and discuss the issue of death. Now, death in different contexts. One, should I die in pain? And what are some of the measures which need to be taken so that pain management can be done so that I die in honor? That's very key. Are there unsettled issues between me and my wife or my husband? For example, issues of bitterness and anger and revenge, so that at least between both of you, you can be able to settle your issues and forgive each other, so there can be peace of heart and peace of mind for both. The issues are, how old are my children? Based on their age, are there some other measures which I need to take so that their care can move on well? If they are very much younger, do I need to get for them, have I put insurance cover for them so that in case I die, the insurance will continue paying for their school fees? Do I need to start something so that in case it happens, they are safe? We have to check other issues like, are they mature enough? And do I need to call them and prepare them for my death? When I die, where am I supposed to be buried? My late dad, before he died, while we were at home, he told me, in case I'll die, this is where I need to be buried. So when he died, it was easy for me to tell the others. Actually told me that the best place for him to be buried is location ABCD. Very key and very important. What about issues of inheritance? Should all my sons get inheritance? If they do, what's the portion of the inheritance? What about your daughters? They need to get part of the inheritance, or because they are married, let them proceed where they are with their spouses. So that it's only the sons who are going to get the inheritance, depending on the culture and the tradition of where you are coming from. It has to be very, very intentional in one way or the other. Then, in case I'll be dying, where should I be married? Now, where should I be buried? Is it in the rural? Is it in the city? These discussions are very important. Then, if you are in the city, should I wait until I die right here, or I should be taken home so that I die there and I reduce expenses on the same matter? Now, these are real issues which affect many a time, but in African context, we tend to avoid. There's the issue of euthanasia. It is still not legal in our country, Kenya, even today. That means pain management at that particular point. Then there are some documents which need to be signed in the hospital. For example, like now when the patient is collapsing, a consent form will be given to the patient so that he can sign. In case I get to coma, should I be on the machine, like oxygen machine, or should it be put off? Now, at least there's some decisions which can be made earlier, that if things become worse, the patient can decide and sign a consent that if things become worse, kindly don't resuscitate me. Those options are still available in Kenya, whereby if the case becomes worse, the person can be, there are people who have been trained in the hospital who can attend to the patient and they can agree on the same matter, so that in case the condition escalates and is heading towards death, they should not resuscitate the patient. And the patient can die anxiously and gloriously at the same time. The issue of death needs to be discussed at every given point. Death is paramount so long as we live. And that's very key.
Well, we're gonna let it boil down or up as you wish, because at the end of the day, there are discussions that we must have. And among them is the worst of life will come, and it will come very hard. But what will make a difference between you and them is the fact that you are able to do the right thing. Sometimes what is right is never morally correct. And what is morally correct is never really right in the minds of others. So do what is right at the best you can. At the end of the day, you chose the path, so stick to the path, however painful it might be. Coach Collins Bolo, how do we reach you, sir?
In case you want to reach me, you can get me through the number +254 721 605 346. You can still get me on Facebook and also Instagram. You can find me. Facebook, the best way you can find me is through Family Health, Life Skills and Career Development, or at Collins Bolo. Or you can get to my YouTube channel, Rebuilding Family Foundation. If you want us to have physical one-on-one therapy, Mombasa, Moi Avenue, opposite Toyota Kenya, Money Counseling Center, you can find me We can have therapy, or we can do virtual therapy via Zoom, and we can see how you can get support and help as far as your life and relationships. Back to you, Eddie.
Thank you so much, Coach Collins, for coming on tonight. On behalf of everybody that made this cast a possibility, I want to appreciate you, including our audience who have been very, very active in the comment section, sharing and expressing themselves, saying very pertinent issues being discussed today. God bless you both. Thank you, Sana Maria Pia Kagendo, for coming on tonight. We can't wait to see you next week on our last episode. But remember to catch me tomorrow or again, it's all odds from 9:30 p.m. East African time. And if you haven't subscribed, do that, because took on a story throughout the week from Tuesday to Sunday. This is TheArtsinHeart. My name is Likuyani Eli, and have a great, great week and ahead. God bless you. Na tukutane ile siku ingine Mungu akipenda.